Welcome to the AB Suite 7.0 New Product Information Transfer. This is a short presentation and demonstration of a new capability to automatically generate .NET native images for your Windows Runtime systems. Before I talk about the specifics of the new functionality, I'd like to give a little bit of background information. When the source code for a managed .NET application is first compiled, it's compiled to managed code, referred to as MSIL, Microsoft Intermediate Language. Now, when a process starts up, this MSIL is compiled to native code or executable code, as and when required. This is done by a JIT compiler or just-in-time compiler. It's recognised that this JIT compile process can slow down the startup of managed .NET applications. Now, an AB Suite Windows Runtime system is a managed .NET application. The segment class within that application represents pretty much the entire system definition. It's a container class for all other classes that make up the system definition, and it's typically very large and complex. When an instance of the segment class is created, a lot of managed code must be compiled to native code by the JIT compiler. And of course, this can take time. For a very large system, this can be something like 10 to 20 seconds. There are two ways that this affects an AB Suite Windows Runtime system. Firstly, online system startup, and secondly, report startup. From a practical point of view, this short delay in the online system startup is not usually too much of an issue because it happens relatively rarely. However, the startup time for all reports can be a significant issue. Reports are often run very frequently and on demand, and a startup delay of 10 to 20 seconds can have a significant effect on the usability. There is a solution for this, and that is the upfront compile of all MSIL code to native code. This can be done using a .NET utility called the NativeImage generator. This can be used to pre-compile all MSIL code in a DLL to native code, and it gets stored as a native image in the NativeImage cache. At runtime, if an up-to-date native image is available in the cache, then the JIT compile will be bypassed and the native code from the native image will be used. The net effect of this is a significant reduction in the startup time of the online system and reports. The ability to generate native images for a Windows Runtime system has always been available for AB Suite. In previous releases, to assist with this process, a script to perform the native image generation has been provided. However, using this script required a manual step to be followed after the system deployment. As a new feature in AB Suite 7.0, the generation of native images is now integrated into the system deployment phase as an automatic step. There's a configuration property that can be set to determine whether native images are generated or not. Now, there is a trade-off that you need to consider with .NET native images. The trade-off is between the additional time taken during the system deployment to generate the native images versus the improved online system and report startup time. As an example, consider a system that contains about 1,000 iSpecs. The generation of native images might take about 10 minutes. This time would be added to the total time to deploy that system. The upside is that the startup times for reports might be reduced from about 10 seconds to less than 2 seconds. I'd like to do a demonstration now to show how easy it is to generate native images, and also we'll show the effects of generating native images on the startup time. Okay, First of all, I'm going to show the default startup time for a large system. Now on this machine I have a large system deployed that has about 900 iSpecs, 930. So let's start it up. I'm just going to start it up by bringing up the configure dialog box. The act of doing that starts up the system and we'll see how long it takes. So I'm going to press the configure option now. Okay, so the system has come up. Well, that took about 20 seconds. Now let's also have a look at running a report. So I'm just going to run a report with the runrep command, runrep report 1 from a command prompt, and we'll see what the startup time is. The startup time will be shown from the time we transmit the command until the beginning of job or BOJ message comes out. So I'm going to press enter now. Okay, there we go. So again, that was, in the order of 20 seconds to start up a report. Okay, so the next step will be to set the generate native images option and do a new build and deployment with native images being generated, and then we will see what the startup time for the system and report is. We now want to set the generate native images property. This property is a configuration property and it's on the top level deployment folder. So let's right click that folder and select properties. And if we look down in the installation category, we have the option generate native images, and by default it's set to false. So we'll set that to true. And now we'll go ahead and we'll do a new build of the system. I've now completed a build and I've got the last part of the build log on display. So let's have a quick look so we can see that it's entering the deployment phase here. It's installed the application here. It's deployed the database involving a database reorganization if required. And then here we have, as almost the last step, generating native images. And we can see a few minutes later that generating native images was successful. From the time difference here, we can see that it took for this particular system, about 18 minutes to generate native images. Okay, so let's now go and have a look at what the effect has been on the startup time. So let's first of all start up the online system. So once again, we'll bring up the configure dialog box and I'll press the button now. Okay, and you can see that now the system has started up and it's less than 2 seconds. Let's also try running a report. So we'll do a run rep of report 1 and I'll press enter now. And once again, you can see that the startup phase has completed in less than 2 seconds. And that concludes this presentation on the generation of native images within AB Suite 7.0. Thank you.